Hey everyone, as usual, welcome to the movie theater lobby. No matter how much I can help it, I'm Brandon.
And I'm Leia. We managed to stumble our way into episode 25, Brandon.
Oh, Leia, you're right. This is 25. Woo, the time flies. You know, it's been a fun little ride, and really think it's been interesting, to say the least, yeah?
Yeah.
We really have learned a lot.
Learned a lot
Yeah.
about movies and podcasting.
Yeah, all too true on both counts. More than I ever expected, honestly.
Yeah.
All that said, of course, we still have a lot to learn, and that's kind of exciting even. Well, as promised at the end of last week's episode, we're here to celebrate with the recently passed Easter thing by getting our picture taken with the Easter Bunny in the movie...
The movie Mallrats.
What is this monstrosity?
Maybe it's for the Easter Bunny pictures.
Impossible. The Easter Bunny court is down at the other end of the mall. It's been up since 2 days after Christmas. I want answers.
Mallrats, a comedy from 1995. Now, if we were watching the extended edition, we would open with Jared Svenning, played by Michael Rooker, trying to woo the mayor in an attempt to get funding for his game show, which will be filming live from the local mall. An attempt which would accidentally be sabotaged by his daughter's bumbling boyfriend and a comedic misunderstanding involving hair and a Civil War reenactment rifle loaded with blanks. But for most of the viewers, forget what I just said, because the theatrical version is the more common, and it puts a different spin on things. In this version, we are treated to an exterior shot of Eden Prairie Mall as we hear a voiceover about an odd bit of deviancy involving a particular cousin Walter, which we may have heard about in Clerks, and now again in Mallrats, and a series of cats.
One time my cousin Walter got this cat stuck in his ass.
Moving on from that, we get to catch up with the main conflict in our story. T.S. Quint, played by Jeremy London, is in a hurry to catch a plane with his girlfriend, Brandy Svenning, played by Claire Forlani, since they are scheduled to head to Florida for a vacation together. Aw, so romantic.
Brandy Svenning, come on down. I'm taking your ass to Florida. Let's go. Where's your luggage?
However, Brandy tells T.S. that Julie Dwyer died last night. I think we've heard about that as well in Clerks. But it was T.S.'s fault in a roundabout way. Julie was to appear on Brandy's father's game show.
T.S., did you see Julie Dwyer last night?
Yeah. I saw her at the video store. She was talking about being on your dad's stupid game show.
But T.S. told Julie that the camera adds pounds, in so many words.
Yeah, well, I told her that the way that TV shows are shot sometimes make you look a lot fatter than you are in real life. Why, what'd you do, call up and cancel?
Julie, having had body issues in the past, tries to swim off some weight.
In the middle of her 700th lap, this embolism popped in her brain and she dropped dead. Right in my backstroke.
Word got back to Jared Svenning.
And it got back to my father and oh shit, T.S., he's really pissed at you.
And to make matters worse, Jared convinced his daughter Brandy to be on the show as a replacement contestant. Of course, this all means no Florida or Brandy for T.S. Sad game show trombone. Womp womp.
Womp,
Or what's
womp,
the...
wah.
There we go. What's the Price is Right one? Womp,
Bum,
womp,
bum,
womp,
bum,
womp.
pew.
Right. Anyway. Next, we arrive in a dank, dark, cramped basement shrine to comic books, movies, and video games. Bedecked in posters, stacked with comic book boxes, and piled with clutter is where we meet another pair of romantic partners. I think it's more one-sided romance in this
Right now
particular
it is,
instance.
yeah.
Brody, played by Jason Lee, is awakened by his girlfriend Renee, who happens to be played by Shannon Doherty. It takes only a moment for us to understand why Renee is dumping Brody.
You're dumping me?
And after some verbal sparring and a very well laid out argument levied against him,
So that's why I have to sneak in here after everyone's asleep at night and sneak out undetected in the morning.
Brody is officially single. Our two broken-hearted beaus, Brody and T.S., come together in a show of solidarity, and Brody decides the duo need to go somewhere, do something, to alleviate their simultaneous double loss, to a magical land of munchies, muzak, mischief, and mass consumerism.
Must be the mall.
The mall. Bingo. Well done, Leia.
No, there is something out there that can help ease our simultaneous double loss.
Ritual suicide.
No, you idiot, the fucking mall.
In this particular mall, we are about to find some local familial ties, some last names we may remember from previous entries in the Kevin Smith View Askew universe, an X or two, shenanigans and Shannons galore.
Whoa.
Shannon,
Yeah, I get it.
Shannon
Yep. All right.
Doherty yeah, okay. Some macho male flexing and posturing, a game show, two very familiar slackers, some words of advice from a truly sagacious storyteller, and more consumerism than anyone should be exposed to. So with all that, let's thank our man-child friends for the carpool ride and get our own shopping done. I'm quite certain we'll hear all about these sad sacks and their exploits just by sheer proximity.
What the hell was that all about? It's a jerk from Fashionable Mail, this upscale wannabe shop on the second floor. He's the manager. Guy's always giving me shit.
I tried to keep it a little snappy because you know what? This movie's fun enough on its own without me giving it all away.
Agreed.
So, we enter into that old familiar territory. Who brought us this movie, Leia?
We spoke about the movie Clerks a couple weeks back.
We did.
Same gentleman, Kevin Smith. He was the director and writer for this film.
If you need to hear about Kevin, go back to the Clerks episode. Give it another listen.
So the first actor I think we should cover is Jeremy London. He plays T.S. Quint, so he's pretty much like the main character, I would say. You know, when I was watching it, I'm like, he looks familiar, but he doesn't.
Right.
God, I've been in a lot of things because I feel like I've seen him in a lot of things. Well, of course, after doing research, I found out that he has a twin brother.
Yes.
So, and his twin brother's been in a lot of things that I'm familiar with. In particular, the movie The Man in the Moon with Reese Witherspoon. It was a really sad film, but I liked that one a lot. Brother was in that one. Jason London is his brother. He also played Joey Lauren Adams' boyfriend in the movie Dazed and Confused, while Jeremy played Joey Lauren Adams' ex-boyfriend in Mallrats. So they both were love interests of the same character in two different movies.
Well, not the same actress, yeah.
Same actress, what did I say?
Character.
Coincidentally, Ben Affleck's in both of those films. He's been in I'll Fly Away was kind of one of his early things. Party of Five and Seventh Heaven he's pretty known for.
Yeah.
He did a lot of episodes of those. And of course, how could you forget Alien Vampire Busters from 2023?
But nobody should forget
classic.
that. He also did appear in the movie Boneface, which came out, I think, last year.
All right, so then let's move on to Jason Lee.
He is technically the supporting actor, but like in Clerks, where Brian O'Halloran's Dante was the main, but Randall was kind of the more charismatic.
Same with this one.
Same with this one. The side character has the more charisma.
Yeah, so Jason Lee plays Brody. Jason is actually better known early on in his career for skateboarding.
Yeah.
He was a really big skateboarder in the 80s and 90s. He even got a shoe deal from Airwalk back in the day. He also, after that, got into like film photography, and he's also created a skateboard brand called Stereo Skateboards. So he's really into that, but he's quoted as saying that he's most proud of doing this movie and then like his subsequent ones because it was out of his comfort zone and he did a great job doing it.
Yeah, he really did.
This is one, he's always been very proud of this one.
And he should be. It was a great performance. If you remember anything from Mallrats, it's going to be Brody and probably Jay and Silent Bob.
He was in Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, Jersey Girl, Clerks 2. He is the voice of the maniacal madman syndrome in Disney Pixar's The Incredible.
He's really good friends with Kevin Smith. He's even the godfather to Kevin Smith's daughter, Harley Quinn.
There's a scene where he's wearing a t-shirt and it looks like all fuzzy and like, I don't know what, I couldn't make out.
It's the main shirt that he wears. He wears another shirt when he wakes up in bed, but the one he wears through the majority of the movie.
And I remember watching it going, what the fuck is that on his shirt?
Yeah,
like
an odd little
couldn't figure it out.
Of a face.
So then I was doing the research for this and found out that it's actually the faces of all the actors that auditioned for the role of Brody just morphed into one face, which is why it looks so disturbing.
It looks disturbing, and what an odd concept for a shirt.
Right?
Who the hell thought of that?
I don't know, but I love it.
And I do love it, yes.
Yeah, I love it.
He also had popularity for being in the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies, the live-action ones, and also for being the main character in My Name is Earl.
Yeah, that's true. He did really good in that one.
with Ethan Suplee, who also appears in this movie, was also in that show.
Yeah, they both did great in that film, or that TV show. But I wanted to talk about Walter Flanagan in relation to Brody's character.
Yeah.
So aside from being the influence for Olaf in Clerks,
right.
Walter Flanagan is Kevin Smith's really good friend.
Yeah.
He's what got Kevin Smith into comic books. Like, he's a huge presence in Kevin's
big
life
influence.
From the beginning. Flanagan's also the influence for Brody in Mallrats, all the way down to that stupid little Dixie cup that he carries full of soda. And he also has an October birth date. I guess they both have October birth dates.
Yeah, there's that scene when they're talking to the topless psychic, and Brody wants proof that she's actually, because once the third nipple comes out, he's fully disgusted with the idea. And he's like, come on, give me some proof that you, and she goes, you were born sometime between the 1st and last of October. And, of course, TS is blown away.
Yeah, oh my God.
But yeah, that shows the October
She's right.
birthday.
And of course, Walter Flanagan is in this film too.
Mm-hmm.
He plays a fanboy.
Next to Steve Dave.
No, yeah.
I was warned about you. Take it easy before I have you removed from the
Warned? What the fuck are you talking about? Tell him, Steve Dave. Fuck you, fanboy.
Of course, that morphed into their podcast title, Steve Dave.
Yeah. The other thing that I found interesting about Steve Dave is the name originated from the fact that Kevin, Walter, and Brian Johnson, when they were all younger and collecting comic books together, they would frequent a comic book shop. Well, Walter could never remember if the owner's name was Steve or Dave. So they just started collectively calling the owner of that store Steve Dave. And it just
so that's where that came from?
Yep.
Jason Lee's also pretty famous for one other thing that is totally not acting related or skateboard related, but totally related to what he named his child. Do you remember what it was?
I know he named his child Pilot Inspector.
Pilot Inspector. I thought Apple was weird. Pilot Inspector?
Inspector.
Interesting.
Spelled with a K.
Yes. And his other kid is a totally normal name.
Yep. And his wife, what concession?
What agreement did they come to?
Yes. He had to give up something.
All right, so should we move on to Claire Forlani? She's been in a few things that I actually recall her being in, namely Meet Joe Black, a big one that I remember her being in. She was also in Mystery Men.
Love that movie.
Yeah, I love that movie. And then she was in Besquet and The Rock.
The Rock, Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery. Oh, yeah, baby.
She also was in NCIS Los Angeles and CSI New York, so you have to mention that as well.
No wonder we haven't seen her.
Yeah.
Because we don't watch any of those shows.
We don't watch any of those.
Which I love the fact that we call it out so often.
I know.
We've never watched
I've never seen them, but there's a lot of people in them, so there must be a good reason for that. We had also talked a couple episodes, 2 episodes exactly, back about Rose McGowan and her coming out against Harvey Weinstein in 2017. Claire actually came out in 2017 about him as well. And she said that she had escaped him 5 times, including twice in a hotel, and that she had had a disgusting experience with him.
What an awful predator, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
So she's another victim of that disgusting man.
And think of how many women in Hollywood haven't come forward about
I know,
it.
that's what I mean.
Jesus
it's like
Christ.
There's a lot of women who have.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a lot who haven't. And he's gotten away. He got away with a lot.
She's British born and has a British accent. You can when you're watching this movie, you'll notice that her speech pattern is
we
just
even
a little
mentioned
bit.
that. We're like, what is that accent?
Yeah, it's like, is it like a Northeastern? She's just doing her best American accent.
Yeah. Let's move on to Shannon Doherty. She plays Renee in this film. Brody's girlfriend who dumps him at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. For good reason.
For good reason. Way good reason. I mean, she put up with more than she needed to,
He is
apparently.
a lazy partner.
Yeah, he is. I think she's best known for her role in Beverly Hills 90210 as Brenda and in the show Charmed. Even though she's known for those, she was in it a shorter period than for like how long the TV shows went on for. But yet that's what she's better known for.
She was in each show for less than half of the length of the show.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. In this film, she actually beat out Alyssa Milano for her role in Renee in Mallrats.
Oh, okay.
Alyssa Milano is also her Charmed co-star.
Shannon Doherty, of course, got her career start in Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
And then went on to a little more significance in the movie Heathers.
She is seen wearing at least 3 different outfits in this movie. She actually had a clause in her contract that stated she could keep everything her character wore. So she came up with the plan that her character would wear everything she bought. This is not surprising coming from a woman who got in trouble with the law for forging checks. Yeah. She's going to get everything she can.
That is pretty smooth.
It's pretty smooth.
It's funny. It seems that there's a few people in this movie who tried to really take advantage of contract agreements.
Yeah. Is there another one?
Okay, well, I'll just come on and say it real quick. since we're talking about it. Stan Lee appears in this movie. And Kevin had relayed an anecdote at one point. When he first approached Stan Lee about this, Stan Lee kind of hummed and hawed a little bit. And Stan Lee said, oh, my wife, she'd be a little upset if I talked about this story about me loving a girl and losing her, being the love of my life.
Brody, I'd give it all up, all of it, for just one more day with her.
Well, the original script was talking like he was a ladies' man.
Yeah.
Like played women and had sex all the time.
Do you think we can add a scene in where we explain that it was all sort of like a joke story?
Just to tell Brody to get him to do what you want him to do, but it's not actually true.
And Kevin Smith agreed to it. And then when he was writing the additional scene, he was like, whoa, wait a minute. I know Joan Lee would not be upset at all about this. Stan Lee just wanted an extra scene. So, another person took advantage of a contract negotiation to get more screen time.
Yeah. Well, I think he really enjoyed his cameo in this one. And either way, it worked out for both of them. Yeah. Shannon did pass away recently, last year, actually, from cancer. Before she passed away, toward kind of the end of her life, she actually even had her own podcast called Let's Be Clear.
Yes.
So she was a little podcaster too.
I explicitly recall hearing promos for her show. It's not really my subject matter. I don't usually go into the real life storytelling and stuff like that. But I remember hearing that promo come. I'm like, well, good for her. That's awesome. And the fact that she's talking about her cancer journey, that's real inspirational. That's super good.
It's good for some people because some people need that in their lives to be able to cope.
So even though she has passed away, her mother continued doing the podcast.
I love that.
In remembrance of Shannon. So.
I love that. So we were talking about Stan Lee. So let's move on to Stan. He actually cites Mallrats as a movie which got him his first starring role. From this movie, he and Kevin actually created quite a friendship.
They really did, yeah.
Yeah. At the time, he was already 70. And when he was on set, they were told to be really gentle with him because he could die at any moment.
Oh, my God.
He's 70. He could die at any moment.
God,
yeah.
70-year-old just falling over everywhere.
And Kevin's like, joke's on them because he lived to be 90.
Did you see the connection between this movie and Captain Marvel?
Yeah, I did.
Involving Stan. Every Marvel movie
it's actually
until
written
before he passed away.
Yeah, it's written in a contract that he has to be in.
Yeah.
He had
Disney
to do a cameo in all of his things.
He has a cameo where Captain Marvel, most of the movie takes place in the year 1995. Captain Marvel is walking on to this bus. And she's walking through, kind of scanning everybody sitting down, and she sees a man with a script,
purple script in his
over
hand.
his face.
Yeah,
and you can see right on the cover it's inscribed Mallrats.
Yep, and clear as day.
And she kind of pulls the book down a little bit, and there's Stan Lee's smiling face, and you can actually hear him with the book up by his face, reciting the line,
"Trust me, true believer."
That year is the year he would have been filming his scene in Mallrats.
When you watch him do his lines, he actually scans from side to side because he's reading cue cards because at his age and because he's not a trained actor, he couldn't memorize his lines. So they had somebody holding cue cards up for him, which I guess was actually made additionally funny because Jeremy, being a trained actor, actually quite often did not get his lines.
Forgot a lot of his
Miffed him
lines.
all the time. I thought that was kind of interesting because he's practicing his lines on that bus, but he didn't actually
memorize
any of those lines. Stan actually wasn't set to be on this film either. They had created a character called Stan Miller, which was a mix between Frank Miller and Stan Lee.
Okay.
So that was who the character was going to be. It was going to be played by somebody, whoever. The producer of Mallrats, his name is James Jacks. He actually reached out to Stan Lee because he knew who Stan Lee was. They were familiar. And Stan Lee finally agreed to do it. Kevin couldn't believe that he was going to be on. Like, it was a dream come true for him.
Sure.
So this was the first time they ever got to meet, was on this film.
Another little Brandon anecdote here. So we have mentioned before that we've gone to San Diego Comic-Con in the past. And while we never got to talk with Stan Lee necessarily, you and I happened to be on an escalator going down. Stan Lee was on an escalator going up. So, of course, a lot of people were kind of saying, oh, Stan. So we got to say, hey, Stan, and got a little high five as he was kind of high-fiving everybody on the way up. It was so cool, man.
Yeah, he was a neat dude.
Yeah. I would have loved to just have the chance to sit down and talk with him, but hey, I'll take that high five to my grave, man.
So if Stan Lee hadn't been in the movie, they were actually looking at John Waters and Quentin Tarantino to play Stan Miller.
I would have liked to seen John Waters.
Yeah.
I think that would have been cool.
Yeah.
Tarantino would have been fine. But
he was up and coming, so it was possible to get him at that time.
Yeah. You see Tarantino in a lot of his films, and Tarantino's just always Tarantino.
Yeah.
But I think John Waters would have been a nice, wise storyteller to just kind of fill in. I think that would have been great.
I just wanted to make sure we mentioned a few things about him, because I think Kevin, it's probably the best part of the film for him was having him
I would guarantee it.
Yeah.
He probably would have made the whole movie just for that, to be honest.
Yeah. I think maybe we should cover Ben Affleck too.
Yeah, let's just cover him real quick.
Yeah, plays Shannon. He's really known for doing like bullies. So he was in Dazed and Confused, played a bully in that one, which is kind of what led him to being in this film. He's a famous actor, but what you didn't know about him is that he is a insanely good poker player. He's actually been blacklisted several places because of his card counting ability.
So maybe he should have played Good Will Hunting.
Right. Well, he and his friend
Matt Damon
wrote that script and sold it for, it wasn't as much as I thought it was, but it was like $200,000 or $300,000 or something like that.
More money than I'll ever have at once.
And the cool thing is that he sold it actually right when he was auditioning for this film. And Kevin was like, why are you here, dude? Because I guess the day he auditioned was the same day that they announced the sale of Good Will Hunting to Castle Rock. So Kevin was really surprised that Ben still wanted to audition. And Ben was like, well, I still want to act.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't want to just stop now.
I still want to be an actor.
Just getting started, bro.
Yeah. But, maybe 2-3 weeks after that, it may not have been a thing. He may have been like, I don't need
busy.
to. Yeah, right. I'd have been busy. Or, of course, he's been in Field of Dreams, Good Will Hunting, we just mentioned, Shakespeare in Love.
Him and Matt Damon both appeared in Dogma.
They did, and they were really good in that.
Yeah, they were the two leads in that.
Yeah.
One.
Of course, he's also appeared in 3 live-action Batman films, in Batman vs. Superman, Justice League, and The Flash.
Yeah, so we get that little comic book connection for him.
I'll admit, he was a pretty good Batman.
Yeah, honestly, despite the backlash he got, I thought he was a fine Batman.
He was all right.
No trouble to me.
And with the exception of Clerks, he's appeared in all of Kevin Smith's View Askew universe films.
Yeah, that's true, huh?
Mm-hmm. Even if they were just small parts, he was in them. He actually almost didn't get the role for this film either, because before he auditioned, the studio said that he had a reputation of being a potty mouth.
Oh, God.
Like a real bad potty mouth.
On a Kevin Smith film. Oh, no.
I know, right? Well, and so Jim Jacks told Kevin that he added more F words to the script Dazed and Confused, which already had a lot of F words in it. But I guess he added like a ton more to the script. He just used them willy-nilly.
That's my boy.
Yeah, right? So Jim Jacks is like, I don't think it's a good idea. He's just going to F it up. He's just going to F the film up and make it really, really...
fucked.
Yeah, F word full. And Kevin's like, well, let's give him a shot. And of course, he got the role for the film. But I think it's funny because the studio actually cut back a whole bunch of cussing from the original script even. So even if he added a few more Fs, it's probably would have been in the original script before the studio got a hold of it. But really, that's why he wasn't going to get it.
Yeah, that's so stupid. Oh, man. People in suits that make decisions, man. Just stop. Stop it. So just to mention Michael Rooker real fast, he played Jared Svenning in this movie. Mm-hmm. Did you know he studies martial arts?
Yes.
And has a black belt? That's pretty cool.
I did read about that, yeah.
Yeah, I'd never known that until I was researching this.
It explains why every time he takes his shirt off, while he still has kind of a belly, he always looks really super fit.
He's still a pretty fit guy.
Yeah.
And
even in Slither, you're like, wow, all right, he's pretty fit.
Yeah, he's doing all right for himself. He's got a little booty shot in this movie. But yeah, the first time I ever saw him was in the movie Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Yeah, that was the first movie I ever, and that was his first movie too. That was 1986.
Right at the right time.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't see it when I was 6.
I didn't see it when I was 6 either, no.
But I ended up seeing it before I saw Tombstone, which was another one of his very popular appearances. Cliffhanger, The Slither, like you mentioned.
I
absolutely love Slither.
Yeah, me too.
And then, of course, Walking Dead, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, Yondu.
Stuff, so.
He was in one episode of CSI Miami. And the only reason I think it's interesting is because it was the first time he played a character with a prosthetic arm. And then the second time was in The Walking Dead.
Huh. All right.
So he's played 2 roles where he has a prosthetic arm. I was reading a cute little anecdote about him. I guess when he goes to cons, kids are surprised he doesn't have blue skin.
Oh, because of Yondu.
Because of Yondu. And that's what they're familiar with. You know, they're like, well, you don't have blue skin. What? Like, they think he has blue skin in real life. So he comes up with this cute little anecdote to tell children. Yeah, that he has his human makeup on, covering his skin so that people don't laugh or make fun of him. And that I guess he always wears a hat. So he said, and the reason I got the hat on is to cover my fin. He said, and my spaceship is parked up on the roof. That's
cool.
what he tells little kids so that they don't feel so freaked out that he's not Yondu.
That is awesome. I love that. That's cool.
Well, that was a cute little thing that he does for those kids. Yeah.
There's
It's wearing human makeup.
There's no harm in just trying to fuel the imagination of children, man.
Especially small children.
Yep.
Like, it's fun. All right, so let's get into some of the acclaim for the film, since we've gone on at length at some of the actors
let's
so
roll
far.
right along.
1.83 is the legs for this one.
Kind of walking on ankles at that point.
It's probably because the domestic box office for this was $2,122,000, but opening weekend was like half of that. So they made most of their money. I mean, the great majority of it was their opening weekend, and then it just kind of
did not do well. Kevin Smith is on record as saying Clerks made his career and Mallrats killed his career.
Yeah. It since has a better cult following.
Oh,
and,
it for sure does.
Critics at first hated it, and critics are a little kinder about it now. I would say a lot of the humor doesn't hold up very well in terms of like our society today. There's the infamous scene where Brody puts his hands down his pants.
Oh, the stink palm. In a post-COVID world, that's kind of gross.
Oh, yeah. Extra super gross. It was gross back then, but it's kind of like, that's how diseases are spread, man.
Right, yeah. Terrible disease.
Terrible diseases are spread that way. And then there's the whole thing with the underage girl.
Yeah.
Like, that whole thing throughout the entire movie, I was like,
that was a little off-putting.
Yeah, and she sleeps with the security guard, and it's just like 60. Yeah. Like, I mean, he's not that old, but he's old.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncomfortable in
moments.
This movie.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't like that. It's got a good cult following, but you do have to take some of that movie with a grain of salt because Kevin Smith's humor isn't always understood. The production budget was $6.1 million.
Yeah.
So it did not make its money back in the theater at all. And it didn't get any awards, like zero.
No, this movie is largely forgotten by people who don't like Kevin Smith stuff.
Yeah. I think the best part about this film for me is its connections to Clerks. And then Brody's character. Yeah, I love Brody's character.
You know, as I usually do in this segment, I'll mention the tagline. This time, there's only one that really was typically used and that really sticks out. Because honestly, it's a pretty good tagline. They're not there to shop. They're not there to work. They're just there, which is exactly the case of this movie.
They're Mallrats.
Mallrats. All right, well, let's just get on with everything else then, yeah?
I want to start off with the timeline of this film. Since we already did Clerks, let's talk a little bit about the timeline.
Let's do that.
Because it's kind of interesting. And it's kind of one of your first major connections to Clerks.
Yeah.
And it's really only made possible by seeing Clerks' lost scene with the animation.
Yep.
Which is
10th anniversary Clerks.
Which is the one we watched. So the timeline is actually, Mallrats happens on Friday, April 15th, 1994, and Clerks is on Saturday, April 16th, 1994. About a day apart.
Yeah.
I mean, right about. So we know this because in Clerks, in the lost scene, we find out that Julie Dwyer died on Friday, April 15th, because her death card, that funny scene with the death cards that he collects.
Yeah, it's so weird.
It's written right on the card. In Mallrats, Brandy is having a conversation with T.S. and asking T.S. if he had seen Julie the night before, and goes on to say that, you know, she died sometime. It's not clear.
Yeah,
it would be either sometime late that night or early that morning. Yeah. Either way, there's a day difference between the two of them. So that goes to show that it's probably Mallrats is taking place on Friday.
Right.
And Clerks is probably taking place on Saturday. Huh. That's the timeline.
Yeah.
So it does happen around Easter time.
Right around-ish, yep.
Coincidentally, just if anyone's curious, Easter actually is on April 3rd in 1994.
The events of this movie would have taken well after Easter.
Yeah, maybe that's why the Easter Bunny's so crabby.
Maybe.
Because he's been
just wants to be
pissed on by a bunch of kids for days and days and days. He's had enough.
We've talked just kind of briefly about Walter Flanagan and how in this movie, Brody talks about his cousin Walter having purchased a cat at the mall to shove up his ass. And then the next week, he got another cat stuck up there. And then the next week, got another cat. And Brody was like, hey, what's going on?
And he said to me, Brody, how the hell else am I supposed to get the gerbil out? My cousin was a weird guy.
Cousin Walter has big ordeals that he deals with. In Clerks, Randall mentions his cousin Walter who died trying to suck his own dick. It's assumed then that if both of these guys have a cousin Walter, that they're both some sort of second or third relation or cousins in some way, Randall and Brody. Cousin Walter also gets mentioned toward the end on the game show where Brody mentions his cousin Walter being on a flight and the flight, like the engines stop working and the flight starts to plummet. So cousin Walter starts masturbating, then everyone else starts masturbating, and then the plane rights itself, and everyone just goes on having all just partially masturbated in front of each other. All these little connections, like you had mentioned, go back to Clerks.
Speaking of cousins and connections, there's also a scene in the movie during the game show where Brian O'Halloran is seen again.
Oh, right, yes.
But he plays a guy named Gil Hicks.
Yes.
I'm supposed to be on it. I'm Gil Hicks, suitor number 3.
It's actually a reference to Dante Hicks, who was in Clerks, who's the main character, also played by Brian O'Halloran. He's actually supposed to be Dante's cousin.
Yeah. Longer hair, no facial hair.
Yeah, and not as fun.
Yeah.
The other guy's a little more neurotic and more fun.
This guy's very dry.
Yeah, very dry.
And also, Jay and Silent Bob must also be familiar with Walter because there's a point where they're being chased by LaFours, and when they finally ditch LaFours, Jay goes,
"Damn, that bastard's faster than Walt Flanagan's dog."
Yeah, he comes up again and chasing Amy. The dog actually does. Yep. So at the very beginning of the film, like the opening credits, you see all these comic book covers. I went through and put each of the characters to each of the comic book.
Oh, yeah.
So there's Shannon Doherty. She's New Jersey Mallrats 07732.
Yeah.
That's her comic book cover.
And is that the area code for
probably
New
for
Jersey?
This New Jersey it's not this wasn't filmed in New Jersey.
No.
I found it was filmed in Minnesota.
Yeah, the Eden Prairie Mall was filmed in Minnesota.
Yeah, and it actually was being filmed during the same time that Fargo was being filmed, and they were actually right next to each other.
Yeah, kind of just down the street from each other.
Yeah. Anyways, I digress. Yeah. Jeremy London is in Defective Comics instead of Detective Comics. Jason Lee is Brody Man instead of Superman?
The lettering looks like Superman, even though the character looks more akin to like a Hulk growth or a green skin, so maybe Martian Manhunter or something.
Martian Man. Claire Forlani is Brandy, the last babe on Earth.
Right.
Ben Affleck's is my favorite. He's Buttman Adventures instead of Batman Adventures. And it looks like Batman. His backstory was that he likes butt sex a lot. Yeah, and that's why he's called Buttman.
He talks about fucking men's girlfriends, ex-girlfriends, in a very uncomfortable place.
Yep.
A place that women dread, he says.
Gross. Yeah. Joey Lauren Adams, she's Gwen 13.
From Gen 13.
Gen 13. Yeah. Renee Humphrey is Weapon Sex.
Yeah. Well, send up of Weapon X, of course.
Jason Mewes and, of course, Kevin Smith, I think, together are Legends of the Dork Knights.
Yeah.
Dork
Knights. Instead of Dark Knight.
Yeah. Ethan Suplee is Legend of the Bulk.
Incredible Hulk's send up.
Of course, Stan Lee is Legend of the Man.
Of course.
Priscilla Barnes is Fantastic 2.
Yeah.
Picture of two big boobies.
2 giant boobies.
And then Michael Rooker is Angry Pop Comics.
Angry Pop Comics, yep.
That was an interesting way to introduce all the different characters.
Yeah, I love the little mock-up comic book covers. I thought that was great. They actually did get a lot of renowned comic book artists, some of them lesser known at the time, many of them much more renowned now.
Yeah.
But legit comic book artists made up those mock-up comic book covers.
Well, Walter Flanagan himself did a lot of the art for this movie as well.
Yeah.
Not the mock-ups, but he did a lot of art for this film as well, because he's a comic book artist too.
Particularly the blueprints that Jay and Silent Bob use.
At the end of the film, there's the end credits where it talks about the fate of each of the main characters.
Oh, yeah. Kind of like little title cards.
Yeah, little title cards.
What they went on to.
It's actually in homage to Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, yeah.
So that's like a little inspiration that he'd pulled. He pulled a lot of inspiration from a lot of little films, but that one was a specific one.
A lot of films of that era, comedies in particular, tended to do, like Animal House did that as well.
Which we've talked about before,
a fun way to send off those characters that you had fun time laughing at.
Yeah. In fact, that was in reference to The Twilight Zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of the storefronts in the Eden Prairie Mall were fake stores.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were legit stores as well. But the Eden Prairie Mall had some...
It was not doing so great.
Yeah, it wasn't doing great, so there were some empty
lots of vacant
storefronts.
Spots, yeah.
So they came up with Fashionable Mail, which is where Shannon works as the manager there. You have Comic Toast, which is where they go to... Brody's there to get his comics. That's where he goes. That's where Stan Lee's doing his signing. Time for Cookies. Which, I don't know, I think that's I like that shop name. Time for Cookies. There's Buy Me Toys, Burning Flesh Tanning Salon, Rug Munchers.
Classic Rug Munchers.
Yes. Popular Girl, which I'm sure is...
Where she's trying underwear on.
Trying on a bunch of her underwear.
We had spoke how Kevin had to come up with the money to pay for Clerks. Mm-hmm. And one of those things was selling off his entire comic book collection.
Oh, hurt my heart.
Well, you can actually see his new collection in this film because the scene where Brody is in the basement with his girlfriend
shows... Where he's getting dumped.
Where he's getting dumped. You see all sorts of comic books in there. Those are actually his comic book collection, and it's all the ones that he has reaccumulated since Clerks because he was able to because of the success of that film. So
I think that's a great little... a great turnaround for him. In that, hey, I had to sell this off to make Clerks, which then allowed me to make this movie and get my comic books back. They need a feature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he put it back in the movie, which good for you, buddy.
Yeah,
good
I think it's really cool. In this movie, we see Ethan Suplee as Willem Black. Well, we know that there was a Willem Black in Clerks, right? Both very different looking, appearing, and very different temperaments as well. So the Willem in Clerks, slight, he's very kind of stoner attitude, kind of dresses similar, kind of dumpy, kind of frumpy, whatever. Yeah. Played by a different person. And then we see Willem in this movie, which they're supposed to be a day apart, right? Yeah. So how does Willem go from Ethan Suplee to I think it was Walter Flanagan played him in the first one. How does he go from those two appearances? At first, when this movie first came out, Kevin Smith had said, same character, just deal with it. Just deal with it. It is what it is. When Chasing Amy came out on home video, there was an insert inside. It was a map of the New Jersey area where all of the U.S. universe takes place. At the top, it was titled The Cats We've Met. And it has a listing of all of the main and notable characters from Mallrats, Clerks. Chasing Amy, Clerks. Yeah. It lists Willem Black twice. Once for Clerks, once for Mallrats. And then on the side, it has a legend with a couple icons. And the legend details what years all of these people graduated high school. The Willem Black in Clerks graduated from North High School in 1988. The Willem Black from Mallrats graduated from North High School in 1995. Canonized as of that point, two separate characters.
Just with the same name.
The same name.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
Ethan Suplee actually went on to lose a whole bunch of weight for his health.
Yes.
On basically the keto diet.
Basically.
he said he cut sugar out of his diet and started working out because he looks like a completely different person now.
Yeah, he lost a ton of weight. Yeah. It's crazy. Good for him, though. Good for his health, man. Yeah. That's awesome.
Kevin Smith kind of went through the same thing where he had a major heart attack and Widowmaker.
Yep. Had to drop some weight.
And had to drop weight, yeah.
In Clerks, we met Heather Jones. She was talking to Rick Darris at the counter, and they were talking about Rick Darris' sexual exploits, blah, blah, blah. And they mentioned Rick Darris again in this movie and his sexual exploits. So that's kind of the Rick Darris character. Heather mentioned that she is the sister to Alyssa, who we haven't met officially yet, but in Mallrats, we meet Trisha Jones.
Little Trisha Jones. What's a pretty girl like you doing sitting alone in the middle of this monument to consumerism?
Who's the underage 15-year-old girl who's doing the sex study. She's the younger sister to Heather and Alyssa, another family batch all put together.
Speaking of Trisha, since you brought her up, it quoted saying that she's really received $20,000 from Pendant Publishing. It's actually a reference to Seinfeld.
Oh, right.
From 1989. In Seinfeld, Pendant Publishing is actually the company that Elaine works for during the first 5 seasons.
I didn't think of that until you just mentioned it right now.
I read that piece of trivia. I was like, that is interesting.
That is pretty awesome.
So I like how Kevin likes to pull his pop culture into his movies in very subtle ways. Yeah. Without, explicitly referencing something.
Well, and you'll find a lot of Star Wars in this movie, comic books up the wazoo, obviously. Kind of another big kind of wink nod is LaFour's character himself. LaFour's is a character from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, a lawman who's tracking down the two...
With a white hat.
With a white kind of straw hat.
Yep.
Like his character.
Just like his character.
In this one here, so. Oh, and speaking of references again, another one. Brody's name. His character's name is Brody Bruce. You'll also notice that Jaws is mentioned a lot in this movie. Jaws is one of Kevin Smith's favorite films of all time.
Favorite films, yeah.
I was going to propose to her. Where? On the Universal tour.
You're kidding. What part?
When Jaws pops out of the water.
That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard.
Brody, if you're familiar with Jaws, you'll notice the name as Chief Brody.
Mm-hmm.
And Bruce
is the name of the shark.
Nickname for the shark, the animatronic shark in Jaws. So Brody Bruce.
I love it.
Jaws connection.
And it's a great name too.
It is. But I'm going to keep on this track for a moment because Renee in the movie, her last name is never mentioned, but it is credited as Renee Moser. Obviously, I'm sure people can recognize the name Mosier from Kevin Smith circles, but it's not actually a direct reference to Scott Mosier, but rather to his sister Kristen, who Smith says is who he based the character of Renee on. With those references to Clerks, there's one more reference I'll have to throw in here real fast. In the extended version, when they're driving to the mall, there's a quick blink and you'll miss it scene where you see the quick stop.
Oh, yeah.
It shows up just for a little flash.
I remember when we were watching the film, I was like, oh, wait, is that the same quick stop from Clerks? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like,
it still is.
Nice.
It all takes place in that little area.
In the parking lot, so when they pull up with the station wagon and they park to go in the mall. So it's taking place in New Jersey, but they're in Minnesota. Yeah. So they went around and put paper license plates.
Oh, paper New Jersey license.
Yeah, on people's cars. And they said several people drove off with these fake license plates on the backs of their cars.
A great souvenir.
Yeah, I tried to look it up to see if you could buy one, but I couldn't even find one. Like, somebody had to have taken one of those home.
I bet a lot of people just threw them away. They probably had no idea what it was for.
Yeah, bet you they're kicking themselves now.
Right?
I'd be kicking myself now.
Oh, that kind of reminds me. So the Dirt Mall, the US 1 Dirt Mall, actually was in Jersey.
Flea market.
Yeah. It actually was in Jersey. So they filmed it in Jersey.
Yeah.
It's since been demolished.
I see, it's got a theater on it now, right?
Now it's a theater.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that it runs me dry on most things that I've got to say.
The bulk of what we had said in the Clerks episode about Kevin Smith would have kind of played into some of this anyways. So
I think a lot of Kevin Smith's films, they live on pop culture references to begin with.
Yeah. That's the fun part about them.
They also get real fired up once you start getting into the movie connections from one to the next.
Yeah.
And I think we covered that pretty well.
Yeah.
But the last thing I'm going to mention before we get out of here, there's been talk of a sequel to this movie in particular for years and years. And now we're not just talking about like Chasing Amy or Dogma, like a direct Mallrats 2. For years and years and years, it's been tossed about. Kevin Smith keeps saying, hey, I've got a treatment done in process, but then it falls apart. And then I've got another draft done, and then it falls apart. In 2024, it seemed like it was really likely, everybody was on board.
Then
Shannon Doherty died, unfortunately.
Oh, my
And that
gosh.
kind of threw another monkey in that wrench there.
That makes me so sad.
But Kevin Smith did say afterwards, somebody had asked him, with Shannon passing away, is it still a go? And he said, I've just recently talked with Sarah Michelle Gellar. Now, Sarah Michelle Gellar and Shannon Doherty were really close friends, super close. And he floated the idea of having Sarah show up in the movie to take not the Renee role, but to have a character to stand in for that character's
as
spot.
an homage for her.
And it sounded like Sarah Michelle Gellar was all for
about
it.
it. I think Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think she's probably a really neat lady.
I think she is, and she is due for a reawakening in Hollywood. She's still working, obviously.
She is, yeah.
Whether or not the movie happens,
I think it'd be so cool.
I think it'd be awesome. I know that Kevin Smith has gone from saying, okay, it'll be a movie to, hey, maybe it'll be a limited series, whatever. I hope he gets it done. I mean, he pulled Tusk out of an idea that he had during his podcast.
That's such a crazy movie.
Yeah, boy, is it ever.
That would be a fun one to cover. But anyway.
So, Leia, episode 25 is done here, right?
Yeah,
I think finished, buttoned it up pretty good. And, I feel like it's been a long time since I've been to a mall. After watching this movie and doing a little bit of research, kind of think I might like to go check out a mall, our local mass shopping area, whatever we want to call it.
You're a liar.
Okay. Yeah.
I know you too well, and the second you step foot in there, you're gonna want to run away.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
That is a lie. I think you like the idea.
You got me.
You like the idea of the mall better than actually going.
I do love the idea of a mall.
Know.
And back in the 90s when you could just go to a mall and just hang out, and maybe that's what people do now. I don't know what happens in malls anymore.
You go to hang out, but it's too expensive to hang out there now.
And not to mention, I don't have friends.
Yeah,
so I have no one to hang out with.
I
barely had friends.
I don't want to
as a
hang out with you at the mall.
No, certainly not.
You can do it here.
Yeah. Why are we going to go somewhere and have to spend a whole F ton of money for overpriced food court food?
The food court is downstairs. The cookie stand is upstairs. It's not like we're talking quantum physics here.
Let's button this up here. So please, everybody, if you would check us out at themovietheaterlobby.com. Send us an email at themovietheaterlobby@gmail.com, or find us on Blue Sky at The Movie Lobby, and of course, The Movie Lobby on YouTube.
And could you please, wherever you listen to us, give us a subscribe and rate and review us, and please share us with your friends, family, and anyone who likes movies.
That would help out a lot.
Yeah.
It'd be really keeps us motivated, keeps us moving along, keeps the show spreading about, which is great. If you want to, find me, Brandon, Brand MC on Blue Sky. Leia, tell them how to find you.
And you can find me, Leia McClevey, at LM Nerdroom on all of the previously mentioned socials, and at lmnerdroom@gmail.com.
So Leia, before we get around to thanking everybody as we do, let's tell them what's coming up next week.
It's International Jazz Day on April 30th. So we are going to cover the movie Chicago.
Oh, yeah. Another musical coming right up. Yeah.
This is one we're more familiar with, too.
Much more familiar with it. I love Chicago. It's a fun one.
Yep.
All right. So now that everyone knows what's coming next week, we can let you all leave, but we won't let you leave without saying thank you.
Thank you
so
much
everybody
for joining us. And I hope you learned a little bit, because we learned a little bit.
Sure did.
Every time we do this, we learn something
Every
new.
single time. And of course, Leia, after all of that, thank you.
And thank you, Brandon.
And of course, that means we will see everybody next week on
The Movie Theater Lobby.
Bye, y'all.
Goodbye.
Wow, look at this laundry list of complaints. So you have no direction, no college ambition, no job prospect?
Yeah, it also says I have no dick. But you'll notice that follows the financial question, proving once more what women really look for.
Oh, she calls you callow in here.
You say that like it's bad.
Well, it means frightened and weak-willed.
Really? Shit. That was the only part of the letter I thought was complimentary.